Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhare Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhare Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhare Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahans, Parivrajakcharis, Tadisasi Samad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Sri Sri Radha Madhava Ki, Sri Sri Panchatattva Ki, Sri Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki, Gaur Premanande, all glories to their simul devotees, all glories to their simul devotees, all glories to their simul devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 14, Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. And we are reading verses 15 and 16, and actually 16 is there on the board. I'll just read 15 first of all. Very short little purport, one sentence actually. So this is 15. Atha kuru kalyāṇaṁ, kāmam kamala-locana, ārtopasarpaṇaṁ bhūmann, amogham mahīyasi. Translation: O lotus-eyed one, kindly bless me by fulfilling my desire. When someone in distress approaches a great person, his pleas should never go in vain. And this is Diti addressing her husband Kasyapa. And just little purport from Srila Prabhupada. Diti knew well that her request might be rejected because of the untimely situation, but she pleaded that when there's an emergency or a distressful condition, there is no consideration of time or situation. And now verse 16. Iti tam vira maricha kripanam baho bashinem pratyahanunanayam vacha pravridananga kashmalam iti tam vira maricha kripanam bahubashinim pratyahanunayan vacha pravridananga kashmalam Iti tam vira maricha kripanam bahubashinim pratyaham munayan vacha pravridananga kashmalam iti tam vira maricha kripanam bahubashinim pratyahanu nayan vacha pravridananga kashmalam iti, thus, tam, unto her, vira, O hero, Maricha, the son of Marichi, Kashyapa, Kripanam, unto the poor, Bahubashinim, too talkative, Pratyaha, replied, Anunayan, pacifying, Vacha, by words, Pravridha, highly agitated, Ananga, lust, Kashmalam, contaminated. Translation, O hero, Vidura, Diti, being thus afflicted by the contamination of lust, and therefore poor and talkative, was pacified by the son of Marichi in suitable words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When a man or woman is afflicted by the lust of sex desire, it is to be understood as sinful contamination. Kashyapa was engaged in his spiritual activities, but he did not have sufficient strength to refuse his wife, who was thus afflicted. He could have refused her with strong words, expressing impossibility, but he was not as spiritually strong as Vidura. Vidura is addressed here as a hero, because no one is stronger in self-control than a devotee of the Lord. It appears that Kashyapa was already inclined to have sexual enjoyment with his wife, and because he was not a strong man, he tried to dissuade her only with pacifying words. I'll read the verse again. Ititam vira maricha kripanam bahubashinim pratyahanu nayan vacha pravridanangakashmalam. O hero Vidura, Diti, being thus afflicted by the contamination of lust, and therefore poor and talkative, was pacified by the son of Marichi in suitable words. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti, very important subject matter, and this is a famous part of Srimad Bhagavatam, just leading up to the appearance of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And of course, they're extremely well known, very dramatic demons. So anyway, situation, I'm imagine you've all been following the classes. You know the basic situation that Diti, one of the daughters of Daksha, and what was it? I think 13 of them or something like that. They got married to Kashyapa, who it was felt would be a very suitable husband for them. But, as we see here, he doesn't really have so much Shakti like the Shakti of a Krishna-conscious husband, at least we can say. And of course, Kashyapa is not exactly a devotee, certainly not really a pure devotee on the level of, say, Vidura, who's also here in this verse. Vidura is just a really wonderful devotee, great devotee, spiritually strong and able to deal with any challenging situation. But Kashyapa is not on that level. And therefore, anyway, we'll see. I will not do a spoiler, but I think you all know anyway what's going to happen. He's going to just give in. Yeah, he's not like Vidura. Vidura is addressed here specifically in the Sanskrit as Vira, as a hero, because he's such a strong devotee, able to withstand different attractions and challenges and so on like that. And Prabhupada makes the point in the Purport, of course, that in general, devotees, well, Vidura is kind of representing, you could say, devotees in general, at least little more advanced devotees, that they're able to deal with challenges like this. You know, Kashyapa could have told Diti that, listen, Devi, tomorrow is Ekadasi, which of course it is, and because it's nighttime or like evening time. So come on, I am not opposed to the idea in principle, but let's just be a little, patient. That's all. Just be a little patient, and certainly I'll fulfill your desire, but in the proper way, at the proper time. And why insist? Why try to insist that we do this in the way you're suggesting? Because doing it in this way is extremely inauspicious. And the result, it's not just sort of like it's not nice, it's inauspicious in that sense, But it's inauspicious in the sense there are going to be consequences which are going to be extremely difficult to deal with, or even not possible, just like extremely destructive. He could have said something, a little bit like along those lines. And Diti, who is a faithful wife, that's a fact, hopefully, if he asserted himself strongly but nicely, then she would have appreciated, because she understands. It's not that she doesn't understand that this is all wrong and something disastrous could happen. She knows that. So hopefully if he asserted himself nicely, strongly, not abusively, like shouting at her or something like that, but just in a sort of proper way for a husband when dealing with circumstances like this, then the whole outcome could have been completely different. And what would have happened to Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu? We don't know, but I'm sure they would have found their way in sooner or later. But they wouldn't have had to deal with them. And just imagine having a child like Hiranyaksha or Hiranyakashipu. Sure. I mean, generally our devotee children are, at least, they're nice. Generally, I only, in my quite a number of years of experience, I've only known one devotee child or child born in a devotee family who was not nice and who was just really horrific, like a real sort of living disaster. And sure, that was, what a challenge for the poor parents. Just for some satisfaction, some pleasure, brief pleasure, you get so many years, 20 years or whatever it may be, of battling 24/7. So yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? But anyway, Prabhupada in the Purport is focusing particularly on the point of lust, in the form, in this case, of sex desire. And we read and we hear Prabhupada talking about big, powerful men, but materialistic, big, powerful men being overcome by beautiful women. Maybe the best known, or at least one of the ones that I know very well and Prabhupada referred to, was Julius Caesar with Cleopatra. Probably, I don't know really, but I'm sure many of you have heard of that. And he ended up dead as a result. Yes. And then his sidekick or something like that, Anthony, he got involved with Cleopatra and he ended up dead. And then she ended up dead. I mean, of course, everyone ends up dead, but she poisoned herself because it was just too much, the whole situation. Anyway, we won't go back into sort of Roman, Egyptian history, but Shakespeare wrote a play about that. Whew, dramatic. So yes, so these people, Julius Caesar, big emperor and warrior, like he was right there in the battles. And Anthony, same type of person. They weren't managing things in the background in some safe sort of bunker where no one would be able to catch them. They were right there, so they really were big heroes. But they got overpowered by a beautiful and, very intelligent in a crafty type of way lady. And material life works like this. One has to be very careful. Not just men, but men and women, we all have to be very careful. And we know what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Jayato vishayam pumsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho bijayate. That's a verse we should all learn, actually. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops. And then from lust, well, the materialists would say, happiness arises. That's the idea. I mean, that's the conviction. They just, they're fixed in that idea. But unfortunately, kamat krodo bijayate. From lust, anger arises. Because when the term lust is used here in this particular context, it means that the person actually does it. Not just lust like, feeling attracted in this way or that. Shishi Radha Madhava Shri Panchatattva Bhagavan Ki Jai. Yeah, not just lust. I mean, that's already happened. From attachment, lust develops. But now this is lust in the really manifest sense of just going for it and doing it. So, but the problem is, of course, it's just one of the most foundational concepts in Krishna consciousness is that we are all eternal spirit souls, and lust is to do with the material body. We have material bodies, and therefore lust is prone to arise. But because we're all eternal spirit souls, it doesn't really work. Means lust is expressed, is manifest in action, in this particular case in the form of sex life, but it could be, there's so many lusty types of activities for sense gratification. Sense gratification of the material body, but because we're eternal spirit souls, even though there's a little flash, just a brief experience of a little pleasure, but because we're spirit souls, it doesn't last, it's not very deep at all, and before you know it's gone, and your expectations that from this I will get some lasting satisfaction, those expectations are not fulfilled. And rather one is left sort of empty and seeing that it just didn't work. One devotee told me, a British devotee, that he met, would you believe, Mick Jagger. Have you heard of Mick Jagger? If not, that's good. Just don't worry about it. But if you have, you'd know who he is. And him and his colleagues, their famous song, one of their most famous, maybe most famous, I can't get no satisfaction. And I tried, but I just couldn't get satisfaction. So devotees told me he met him somewhere in London and asked him, did you get satisfaction yet? And Mick Jagger said, no, not yet, but we're still working on it. Anyway, I don't know, but that's what I was told by the devotee. Because it just, in principle, it doesn't work. And therefore one should not have that sort of expectation, that sort of hope. But one should understand that satisfaction exists, but It's in a whole different context, a whole different realm of existence, and a whole different way of life, and a whole different perspective on life. So Kasyapa, because he's not, not that he's not a special person in Vedic terms. He's a special person and he has many qualifications, but he is not really a great devotee like Vidura, who really is a great devotee. And therefore he caves in under pressure. And as Prabhupada says, tried to dissuade her only with pacifying words like, well, it's not such a good idea, so, would you mind if we didn't do it? But then she said, no, I want to do it. And he said, oh, well, all right then, if you insist. That sort of consciousness. But if he'd really been a devotee, then, like in the sense of advanced devotee, he would have been able to withstand her emotions and like that and help her to deal with the situation in a constructive way by just waiting a while. But he couldn't do it. So Prabhupada makes the point that Vidura is addressed as a hero, Vira, because no one is stronger in self-control than a devotee of the Lord. And there are many examples. There's many examples in Shastra, and as we have heard from Srila Prabhupada like that, there are numerous examples of devotees who were strong in a nice Krishna-conscious sense and were able to withstand different types of materialistic situations, including this type. And there are examples of like Vedic sages and Vedic personalities who were not exactly devotees and were faced with situations of this type or something related, and they just couldn't deal with it and they just succumbed to it. So, of course, famous example which Prabhupada refers to on numerous occasions is Vishvamitra with Menaka. I think you all know about that, don't you? I would imagine. Yeah, anyway, Vishvamitra, he's a big sage. He's not just some ordinary materialist working in the factory or, just trying to drink liquor and enjoy life. He's a sage. He's a saintly person in certain important ways, but not exactly an advanced devotee. So there he was performing austerities for how many thousand years, I forget, maybe it was 60, but it was plenty, long time. And Lord Indra became anxious, thinking he's going to become so powerful, he'll come and kick me out. So he sent one of his leading, what described in sort of, what would you say, not exactly charitable terms, but just in certain terms as a society girl. It's just a nice way of saying something along the lines of prostitute. Menaka, to attract Vishvamitra. And all she did, she came in and she walked up and down a bit. He had his eyes closed so he didn't even see her. But the way Prabhupada describes it is that she had ankle bells on, and he heard the ankle bells, that's all. He just heard the ankle bells, and that was enough, at least for starters, for him to just lose it and open his eyes, and then he saw her, and then he was just gone completely. But the ankle bells were enough to bewilder him, actually. I don't want to be sort of chauvinistic or something related, but maybe that's an argument for ladies not to wear ankle bells. Anyway, excuse me, sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, that's how it's described. He just heard the ankle bells, and that was it. And then it was sort of, the situation was irretrievable from that point. And then, on it went, and Shakuntala was born, and finally he had some realization, and he tried again, and this time he thought that he'd go underwater. Somehow he did. He managed to live underwater. Isn't that amazing? No sort of aqualung or breathing apparatus, but he lived underwater for another so many thousands of years, 20 or, even half an hour is more than enough to kill anyone. But he stayed there underwater. But then again, somehow, for whatever reason, he opened his eyes and he saw two fish engaged in sexual activity, and that was enough again. He just lost his position. So Prabhupada gives his example, refers to it on a number of occasions. Those of you who have read Prabhupada's books and listened to Prabhupada, I'm sure you've come across it. But if someone's really an advanced devotee, then even if the situation is more challenging than that, either of those situations, the devotee will be able to deal with it and be unaffected. And of course, the example of Srila Haridas Thakur is there, of the prostitute being sent by Ramachandra Khan, who wanted to defame Haridas Thakur, and he had the police nearby just ready to arrest him, and like that. It was a very sort of envious type of program. And the prostitute came out, and again, I think you all know the story. It's just one of the best known stories that we have, that Haridas Thakur, he didn't just tell her, listen, go away, just get out. He was kind of very strategic and diplomatic about it. He said, that sounds interesting, but I haven't finished my rounds. I have to finish my rounds. I've vowed I cannot not do it, so sit down and wait. And so she sat down and waited, and she was sort of, even though a prostitute, she was a Hindu girl, you could say. And she sat down and she heard him chanting and chanting and chanting into the night. Until late at night she fell asleep. And then she woke up next morning, and there was Haridas Thakur again, chanting and chanting and chanting. And she asked him, haven't you finished yet? He said, yeah, that was yesterday's rounds. Now I'm doing today's rounds. So just, patience is a virtue. So just relax. But then that chanting, his pure chanting, just entered her heart and just transformed her into a devotee on the spot. And not just, a devotee in a sort of general or broad sense, but like an advanced devotee. And she just gave up everything basically on the spot and became a fully dedicated devotee. Yes, so Haridas Thakur, not only did he withstand the attraction of some beautiful young lady who's kind of showing off in different ways, trying to attract him, not only did he withstand that, but he transformed her into a devotee, like really on the spot. It's one thing to convince someone, okay, I'll start chanting or something like that. It's another thing to get a person to become really advanced so quickly. So that's a classic example. Yeah, and self-control as opposed to becoming influenced by some sort of lower tendencies. This is lust, but there's also like enviousness. And there's an interesting little story I was told by one devotee. It's not, to my knowledge, been recorded. I haven't seen it in the Veda base or come across it, but he swears it's true, that Srila Prabhupada was having like a darshan with one devotee who was struggling with being tolerant. He was working with some other devotee who, at least according to him, was a little kind of antisocial or something like, difficult person. And so the devotee's telling Srila Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, I'm working with this devotee, but it's so difficult, it's too difficult, because he does this, he does that, and he does different things, and it's just really not good at all. And Prabhupada, I can't tolerate it. So I need to do something else. And at least as we were told, Srila Prabhupada said, well, he's a devotee. He's a devotee, so try to tolerate him and work with him. But the devotee again repeated that, he does this, he does that, and he's just too difficult, eccentric, or something like that. And Srila Prabhupada, I cannot tolerate him. So I must do something else. I can't tolerate him. And Srila Prabhupada answered that, please, he's a devotee. Try to tolerate him as I tolerate you. If you got that one, it's a good one. Because no matter how nice you try to be, there's always going to be at least one person who's tolerating you. That's just life in the material world, particularly when you're involved in a fairly large community. Yeah, there'll always be someone who, when you come, they think, oh my gosh, it's him again. Yes. So anyway, of course, we have to learn to tolerate, because when the time of death comes, then it's too late to start learning how to tolerate. You got to have already cultivated some tolerance. And, in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, there's a very nice incident. It's described in detail in Caitanya Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya was doing his nocturnal kirtans at Srivas Angan, just down the road a little ways. Every night he was coming, and all the devotees were coming, and they're having kirtan all night. And just really amazing kirtan all night. And one night, Srivas, because this is going on in his place, Srivas, his son, one son, somehow died, somehow passed away, somehow or other. And it was kind of, the program started just after dark, after it was dark, I don't know, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock maybe, and would go till just around sunrise, so going for several hours right through the night. And this boy passed away right in the earlier part. And of course, Malini, the wife of Srivas, and other ladies who were involved with the family, they were very distressed. Naturally, it's only natural. They became very emotional and upset. And Srivas told them that, no, please, don't be like this. Control yourselves. Don't show emotion like this. Just carry on with your duties as you do every evening, because we don't want to disturb Lord Chaitanya in his kirtan. So they controlled themselves, and they just carried on as if life was just going on as usual. But then after the kirtan finished, one of the ladies, maybe Malini, because it was her son, displayed some emotion in front of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and Lord Chaitanya asked, what happened? Something has happened here. Something quite dramatic has happened. Tell me what happened. So Srivas said, yes, well, you know, during the night, one of our sons passed away. And Lord Chaitanya said, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? You should have told me. But Srivas said, we didn't want to disturb you because you were absorbed in the kirtan, and so we didn't want to disturb you. So we just kept quiet. And Lord Nityananda was there also, so the two of them said, all right, you have lost one son, and for our sakes you tolerated that through the night. So to reciprocate, we will become your sons. Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda assumed the roles of sons. You had one son, now you've got two. And particularly Lord Nityananda, you know, you've probably read, Lord Nityananda at the time, he's in his 30s, but he really got into being a son. And he would come regularly and have Malini breastfeed him, even though he's in his 30s, and just sort of act like a little boy. Yeah. Lord Nityananda, such a special person. So when devotees tolerate some challenge, some difficulty for the service of the Lord appreciates. It's not just like we're just trying to be strong just to be strong or to become stronger. But if it's done really in service, for the sake of service to the Lord appreciates. And the Lord reciprocates. And that's a great example of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda appreciating and reciprocating. Very amazing. So the thing is that this is the material world. Of course, this is Mayapur, but anyway, the material world is such a place that even though, like materialistic people, of course, they pray for different things. So many of them, at least, maybe the majority, they pray for different things. But one thing they often pray for is, please let there not be problems for me. Let me be able to just live on happily without facing difficulties and disturbing situations and all that sort of thing. So the bottom line there is that while we're in this world, it is unavoidable. Problems will be there. We have not taken to Krishna consciousness in order to just somehow sidestep problems. But we've come to Krishna consciousness to develop pure Krishna consciousness, love for the Lord. And the process involves necessarily dealing with problematic situations in Krishna consciousness. So, and in doing that, of course, one becomes stronger, like on a deeper level. And when the time of death comes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in Madhurya Kadamini, at least about devotees who are on the level of Krishna Prema, that such devotees, of course they're very special devotees, but they are so tolerant and unaffected by any material situations, mentally, emotionally, and physically, that when their material body dies, they may not even notice it. They may just be oblivious, actually not notice it at all. But just after a while, they think, hey, what happened to my material body? It was here a while ago. And then they realize, must have died. Of course, that's very advanced, to put it mildly. But the more that we practice dealing with challenges in Krishna consciousness, the more we'll become able to deal with more challenges. And ultimately the time of death is there as the final test. Yes. So otherwise, like materialistic people, even like sort of sages, who are not really devotees, we mentioned Vishvamitra, people like that, you get stories of them, Durvasa. Durvasa is, he's prone to curse, he's easily agitated by any sort of unusual behavior or something like that. And interesting point, we do a seminar about the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. There are some 21 or so, beginning with Putana and ending with Vyomasura. But one interesting little point in this regard is that maybe 1/3 of them, like it's around 7 or 8 of those demons, became demons because they were cursed by Durvasa Muni. Yeah. He's in the habit of cursing if someone irritates him. So he is what we call a serial cursor. And yeah, even small things, he just cannot tolerate. He is actually unable to tolerate, and then he loses it and curses. So anyway, yes. So these are some thoughts on the subject, and let us try. Well, I know just one little thing I can mention. Bhakti Caitanya Maharaj, very dear devotee, he said that when I see a test coming, some challenge is coming my way, then I think, here comes Krishna in the form of a test, and he welcomes it. Not like, oh no, it's another test, oh my gosh. So yeah, we have to pray to Krishna, not exactly that, please don't make it too difficult, but pray to Krishna, please help me to deal with the tests which are going to come, and help me in that way to become closer to you in service to you. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ke. Thank you. You are too kind. Now the thing is, we're already a couple of minutes over time, so they will probably take action against me if we take questions. Maybe just one from one of the senior devotees, comment, question, just one, or if not, we'll just, yes,
Hare Krishna
Maharaj.
Thank you so much for the class. Maharaj, you brought up the point of Durvasa Muni, who cursed so many, 7, 8 demons.
Right.
So could you speak about how the curse, is it just a curse, or was it also a blessing because they got to meet Krishna?
I see. Okay. Yes, well, first of all, they were just curses. Just, anger. Just, become whatever, something. But then, generally what happens is the person who's being cursed is a devotee, actually. Yeah. So then they, understanding, wow, I've just made a serious mistake. Then they fall at his feet and beg him for mercy and apologize and so on. So generally he then says, all right. Like in one case, just wait for Kali Yuga, it's only a few 100,000 years, and Krishna will come and deliver you. And the devotee said, thank you so much. So it usually works like that. Hare Krishna Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. This is an announcement regarding Be a Gardener campaign by His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu. If you want to sponsor or purchase Chaitanya Charitamrita sets or want to know more about